Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Aliffa Amzelina Risty Lubis from the study program English Literature with the student register 210 705 103. So today I'm going to talk about my research with the title Language Study, the Impact of History and Culture in the Use of Traditional Language in South Aceh. Today I'm going to talk about my research with the title Language Study, the Impact of History and Culture in the Use of Traditional Language in South Aceh. According to Aristotle, language is a speech sound produced by human beings to express their ideas, emotions, thoughts, desires, and feelings. The field of language study in Indonesia is so big and diverse because we have hundreds of traditional languages. History and culture play big roles in the use of traditional language for years. Several researchers have been studying this topic for quite a while, and the results are always interesting. Meanwhile, sociolinguistic study gives attention to language, society, and culture. It discusses the correlation between those three main topics. In this research, I investigated the reasons for language change based on the culture and history in South Aceh Regency, internally and externally. Sociolinguistics studies how people from different places talk to each other differently in some various ways. According to Petra Gill, sociolinguistics is that part of linguistics which is concerned with language as a social and cultural phenomenon. It investigates the field of language in society and has close connection with the social sciences, especially social physiology, anthropology, human geography, and sociology. People from different cultures, ages, and genders grow to have different ways of speaking. These two places are great objects to study sociolinguistics, especially in language change. So the main topic of this research is the use of two different traditional languages in these areas and the comparison between them. South Aceh is a regency in Aceh province. It is a small populated area with not so many vehicles. I did my research in two places. First place is Tapak Tuan. It is a capital and a small city in South Aceh and located between a gulf and a mountain. The second place is Bati Tunggai, a village near a beach. The comparison between these two places gave me a great result in language change based on culture and history. These two places are great objects to study sociolinguistics. So I'm going to talk about my result. For these past few days, I investigated both areas and I found something unique in such a small regency. In Tapak Tuan, citizens mostly speak Indonesian or their traditional language, Jame. Meanwhile, in Bati Tunggai, the citizens mostly speak Acehnese. There are also two dialects. In Tapak Tuan, I found Minangkabau dialect, and in Bati Tunggai, I found Aceh dialect. So I'm going to show you these two videos that I took in two different places that I've investigated. The first video I took in Tapak Tuan, South Aceh, and the second video I took in Bati Tunggai. You can clearly see the difference between these two places and the language they use to communicate with each other, and also the dialect. The traditional language in Tapatuan is externally changed based on culture and history. And it took a long time to change the traditional language, but it is not impossible. And it will also take much time to change it back to the way it was. I'm going to talk about the explanation of my result that I did in this research. Tapatuan had contact with so many different cultures, especially Minangkabau culture, or in English, West Sumatran culture, a long time ago. The traditional language in Tapatuan is slowly changed, and it is externally changed from Aceh traditional language to a whole different language. It is called Jame language. Jame is derived from the word in Aceh traditional language, which means gas. And also, it is a unique language because why I say so, because Jame language is a mixture of Minangkabau language and Aceh language, and it created a new language that you've never heard of. These assimilations is the background of how a language changed in South Aceh area, especially in Tapatuan. So, Tapatuan citizens also call this place a different name. It is Talwa. Talwa in Minangkabau culture or Minangkabau traditional language means teluk or gulf in English, because a gulf is where traders came from. So yes, Tapatuan, a long time ago, Tapatuan had contacts with traders from West Sumatra that come and go to sell things, and even some of them migrated permanently and moved to South Aceh, especially in Tapatuan, and built colonies. They married local people and spread their culture. And that's also the background of why traditional language changed in South Aceh, especially in Tapatuan. So, it is now 70% of citizens that speak Jame language in Tapatuan. But not only in Tapatuan, it's also spread in any other areas in Aceh, but mostly in Tapatuan. If we talk about the history and culture of why the assimilations happened in this place, we will talk about the 16th century. Back in 16th century, South Aceh was visited by a lot of traders from West Sumatra. Like I said before, they come and go to sell things, and some of them even migrated to South Aceh and married local people. They spread their culture widely. And the local people call these West Sumatran people anak jami. Anak jami in English means children of guests. Children of guests, because these West Sumatran people were newcomers to Tapatuan. Not only through marriage but also educational sector. Back in 16th century, West Sumatran people are known to be Muslim, and Aceh was known for the places to study Islam. So West Sumatran people most likely to came here and studied Islam. Not only that, but also South Aceh was a place to stop by for pilgrims from West Sumatran that wanted to sail for Mecca and Medina. And that's also the reason behind the language change in South Aceh. Tapatuan is a small part in Aceh province. And Tapatuan has 70% of the native speaker of Jame language. The citizens in Tapatuan most likely to speak either Indonesian or the Jame language. But it's different in Bate Tunggay. Uh, the citizens in Batu Tunggai most likely to speak Acehnese. Why? Because not all people in Tapatuan are from Aceh. That's why the citizens are most likely to speak Indonesian or this Jami language. But in Batu Tunggai, the citizens mostly come from Aceh, and that's why the citizen most likely to speak Acehnese instead of Indonesian. Our language change. As time goes by, human cannot avoid changes. For example, the English language has changed internally and externally. There are several factors of why the language changed internally. First is the improvement of vocabulary. For example, like adding new words by borrowing some words from other languages, changing the spelling from old spelling to new or modern spelling. Like in Bahasa or Indonesian language, the spelling of bulan is internally changed from Boelan to Bulan. And that's a modern spelling for month or bulan in Indonesian. And the last is the change of phoneme or sound. For example, in Minangkabau language, people say plate as piriam. And in Jambi language, people say plate as piriang. Why? Because a long time ago, Aceh people used to change the R in every vocabulary to R sound because it's easier for them to pronounce. The next factors that I'm going to talk about is the outside factors, or we can call it external factors. These factors came from the society itself. For example, the culture and the history have linkage to the society, and these are also the main reasons of why language changed externally from the first form. This problem is very similar to the appearance of Creole language. It happened because in an area, the native people and the newcomers have interacted with so different languages and cultures. From here, means of communication was used, but the means got influenced by the newcomers' words, and with that, new vocabulary is created. Not only that, but also the impact of government or well-known people using different types of words will influence the people to do the same. In here, let's talk about the 16th century again. Back in the 16th century in Aceh, especially in South Aceh, this place was ruled by a king who was subjected to the rule of Aceh Sultanate. The royal people used Minangkabau language to welcome the traders from West Sumatra, and that caused big impact in the citizens to learn the Minangkabau language. So, I've come to the conclusion of history and culture have big impacts on the change of language internally and externally. It took a long time to spread the impacts of history and culture in the change of language, but it's not impossible. The internal changes come from the fixing of grammar, adding new vocabulary, and the change in phoneme or alphabet. The external changes come from the interaction between individuals with different cultural backgrounds, the influence of big people, and historical changes. I think that's all from me. I'm sorry if I have some mistake. Finally, I say Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and goodbye.